The day you do effectively settle is a day at which your control and power and the ability to shape does no doubt change.
Today on Beyond the Numbers, we're joined by Matt Hay, the founder and former CEO of Bulbshare, a platform that transformed the way global brands connect with their customers.
Anyone who's set up a business will know the mania that you go through, particularly in those early days when you're really struggling to sort of build something that genuinely solves a problem. But I did have this itch to do something else. How do I reinvent myself? What am I for now? I've done this and I've devoted everything to it. What next?
Welcome back to Beyond the Numbers. I'm Bev Wakefield, and this is the podcast where we take the stress out of business finance and break down the numbers in a way that actually makes sense. Today on Beyond the Numbers, we're joined by Matt Hay, the founder and former CEO of Bulbshare, a platform that transformed the way global brands connect with their customers. Matt built Bulbshare on one simple but powerful belief, that brands make better decisions when they listen to the people they serve. Long before community and co-creation became industry buzzwords. Under Matt's leadership, Bulbshare grew into a global insight and innovation platform, working with household names such as L'Oreal, Nestle and Lego. By combining technology with authentic human feedback, Bulbshare helps brands move beyond traditional market research to build stronger relationships and more meaningful results. In 2024, Bulbshare was acquired by Service Management Group, marking a successful exit for Matt and his team. Now, before founding Bulbshare, Matt led Latimer Group, a creative agency specialising in co-creation and social impact. Now, his career has always revolved around one theme: the power of people to shape better businesses. But while his impact has been global, Matt's roots and his heart remain firmly in Derby. He's a passionate advocate for the region's entrepreneurial ecosystem and seeing that push forward. Matt?
Very nice of you to say.
It's all very true.
Right.
Welcome.
Yeah, nice to be here.
Thank you so much for being here.
No, you're all right.
I guess, should we take it all the way back to the start of the journey? How did you end up at Latimer Group and then on to Bulbshare?
So where it started for me is I grew up in a place called Chaddesden in Derby, which is quite a working class part of the city, but great upbringing, loved it there. Great friends to this day, partly why I've come back essentially. But probably felt as I got to teenage and then started to study that it was quite small in terms of the opportunities available to me. And like so many other people, left the city, moved down south to find my fortunes, and started working in action research. And what action research is different to research. It's the idea that you don't just observe what's going on, you participate and become part of that. And what was cool about that is I would go in and I would look at different areas of poverty, and I would compare what it was about communities that had managed to do better and improve versus those that hadn't. And what I found was in those areas where the people had genuinely collaborated with the way services have been created, two things happened. Number one, those services actually resonated with those audiences because they co-designed them, they co-created them. And secondly, they became great champions of the city. They became great champions for their community and their area. And that really gave birth to this idea of, which shouldn't be a revelation, which is, why is it that if we want to create a product or a brand or a public service that resonates and is useful to the audience, then we need to design it with them, not just for them. And you think that's happening, you think that would be the common thing, but it turns out most government departments, NGOs, large brands, whoever they weren't really doing that. They were creating things in relative isolation, doing a bit of research, but not truly involving the audience, the consumer, the citizen in the design of those services. And that's effectively what gave birth to the first social enterprise, which was Latimer Group, that you talked about in your introduction.
Oh, incredible. So how long were you with Latimer Group then? Or how long were you with? How long,
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
We started that in 2010, and And we had like quite a fast rise. So this idea of working directly with people, giving power to people in the design of things seemed to be catching on. And we were part of an early movement of social impact companies that suddenly, under the new joint government, Tories and Lib Dems, were getting quite a bit of investment in this idea of social enterprise, social impact business. And off the back of that, we raised, I think, about £1.5 million to start Latimer. And that allowed us to really drive Latimer quite aggressively from something that was just happening in London to then we were building and co-creating campaigns with young people in Manchester, in Birmingham. And then before too long, instead of just working with government departments and NGOs, suddenly we were working with, brands like Adidas and Puma and Unilever, and doing things not just in London and Manchester, but now in New York and in Berlin and
wow.
South America. And yeah, it told me one thing is, one, there's real power in allowing everyday people to shape the products and services that affect their lives. But secondly, that when you're in the right place at the right time, and I was in the South, I was in London, there was this new wave of impact and investment opportunities for what we were doing. It can really catapult your opportunities and success. And yeah, we were really fortunate to be a part of that.
Oh, wow. And what happened with that journey then? So how long were you with Latimer?
So the journey was great for a long period. We were in top 50 fastest growth companies in the UK.
Yeah.
We were winning awards for combining growth and commercial growth with social impact.
Yeah.
And we thought it was great. We're having such a good time with it. But actually, as that company grew, it was an agency business at its core, and it was really difficult to scale. So we were great at collaborating with young people in Manchester, in Birmingham, in Liverpool. But suddenly when brands were asking us to do that in New York and Berlin and all these different areas, it was really difficult for us to scale that.
Right.
We didn't know the communities. We didn't know practitioners and facilitators who could help us run those sessions in these different markets.
Yeah.
And it wasn't very cost effective.
Okay.
So all of a sudden, from this real growth, we suddenly reached a real challenge, which was we can't scale this business with any degree of continuity or predictability. And also the relationships that we forged with the communities we'd really loved that. It was all about the communities. It was really important to us that the communities of young people we were working with got a lot of value from the experience. And all of a sudden, it became a little bit transactional.
Yeah.
Right, we weren't able to build the deep relationships with them, and I think as a consequence, two things happened. One, those relationships suffered with those communities, and secondly, we just weren't able to grow at the same rate.
Yeah.
And so, from growing to almost like 100 people and having 100% year-on-year growth, suddenly that company went into real collapse, and it got really messy and challenging for me and our co-founders in maintaining the company, frankly.
I guess that's an incredibly tough point to be in as well. And was that a business you just had to liquidate and move on, or?
So in many ways, what for me it was this pain point, the problem that resulted in Bulbshare.
Yeah.
But at the time, ultimately Latimer did get acquired, so it wasn't a complete end to it, but it certainly became a much smaller entity. My co-founder of Latimer, he sort of took the agency business and
forward,
maintained that, and then went through that acquisition. But it was born out of the ashes of those challenges. So still really believing in the model, really believing in democratizing how brands and businesses and governments build things for people, but realizing that doing that in the absence of technology is really, really difficult to scale. And that's really what Bulbshare was. It was effectively me saying, how can I co-design, collaborate with people at scale in a predictable, cost-effective way that's fast and crucially really great for the communities of people that you work with.
And you're nurturing those. I think there's a big bit there though. So, and a lot of people will resonate with this. So if they're sat here at the moment, building a business, scaling a business, perhaps even feeling at the point that you were feeling with Latimer, in terms of going, I don't know how we're going to do this. I'm guessing there were then finance pressures, all those kind of things, because you're growing something, you're not getting the margins that you need to achieve. You don't really know which practitioners to use over in New York and which communities to tap into. Everything's feeling unconnected for you, and you're very purpose driven anyway. That's, I guess, at a point of a bit of despair as you sat there.
Yeah, you could call it despair.
Yeah.
Anyone who's set up a business will know, like, the mania that you go through, particularly in those early days when you're really struggling to sort of, one, build something that genuinely solves a problem, genuinely solves a pain point, and then dealing just with the practicalities of every day, you know, working with people and working with customers and all that, and having your family and your own life and how you fuse those things together is crazy difficult. But I don't know. I think what lesson did I learn from it? I learned a few really obvious things, which was we probably drank the Kool-Aid around what we were doing. We probably believed our own hype to a certain extent because we were part of that wave of new social enterprise businesses that sort of could have their cake and eat it. So we could sort of feel really mission focused, but also work with these sexy big brands as well, and generate money and make money.
Yeah.
And I think we became sort of consumed by that. And it was so exciting, but we probably tried to do too many things. You know, we tried to expand and scale really aggressively, you know, into the US, into other parts of Europe, working with large brands on scopes that we probably, you know, in hindsight, maybe we should have gone a bit slower. I know we should have gone slower than we did. But at the same time, I think part of the joy of entrepreneurship is the doing and the testing.
Yeah.
You know, and the madness of all of that.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm sort of, I don't know if I would have it any other way, despite chaos.
How it felt at the time.
Yeah, and you know, they say pain has no memory, right? I've heard that before. So maybe
looking back with rose-tinted glasses, maybe.
Yeah, possibly. But no, I do think there's something about being vulnerable and putting yourself in positions that feel outside your comfort zone that are super familiar to entrepreneurs. But I think the more you lean into that, the faster it is you learn from those problems. And as I said, without that, Bulbshare would never have existed, right? Because it came about as a direct result of the pain and challenges that we had with Latimer. And without that, frankly, then there would be no Bulbshare.
That's incredible. So did you come up with the concept before you left it, or in that transition point?
Yeah.
So you left with almost an excited energy, I imagine, to go, okay, I think I found the cause of what was happening here. I'm going to go and create this here. Latimer's going to stay with my co-founder and take that journey on as hard as it perhaps felt to detach from that. Yeah,
because and very much like Latimer is our baby. You know, we lived and breathed it. It wasn't just, and it isn't for any entrepreneur. You know, it's never we sort of put our work at home. We go and we have a private life. We lived and breathed everything. You know, we would live at the office. We'd go out in the office. We had parties at the office. Our whole social life was embroiled in that. So it was really hard removing myself from that because it felt so much being the baby. And there was still a lot of energy and passion there. But I think I did see that technology, and this was in sort of, you know, a period where a new wave of technology and software as a service was kicking off. And you could see the writing on the wall for agency-based, professional services-based businesses that are so reliant on people and having an absence of technology to ameliorate some of those challenges. And at the same time, we were a community business. At our core, we were about working with communities. And of course, with social was just going berserk, the idea that we wouldn't be leveraging technology more effectively to collaborate with communities seemed a bit senseless and odd. So I think for a while, we all thought that we needed to transition into more of a digital led approach. And yeah, Bulbshare gave a perfect opportunity to do it.
Wow. So then you start the whole process of designing a tech-based SaaS business that was that is Bulbshare. Bulbshare's still there. It's just your chapter's ended, obviously, on that side.
Yeah.
Tell me about how that felt then. So you've just come away from a fast-growing top 50 business. You've kind of obviously had the challenges. You've gone, actually, I know the pain. Here's how I'm going to resolve it. I'm going to now delve in.
I reckon you do, through pain and through experience, you do start to see patterns. And so whilst it was scary to sort of go again, it was also like, okay, I've learned the hard way to a certain extent of what not to do.
Nice.
And we could be a lot more judicious from the very beginning around what it was we were going to focus on, the operating model, the way we would work with communities, the sort of religious zeal around focus on this and just do that really well. And don't be distracted by all these other stimulus and opportunities that might come your way. And it's the most, everyone always says, everyone tells you to do it, but so few of us do. But just having that religious diligence to just say, I'm going to do this brilliantly. And that's sort of what we said. We said, we are going to be the home of co-creation. If any consumer who's passionate about a brand or an issue that matters to them, Bulbshare will be the destination that they will come to collaborate and build and improve products and services that affect their lives. And so we really got into that. We really focused on the top 50 largest consumer businesses in the world that we will work with. So brands like Coca-Cola, Lego, L'Oreal. And we did that for two things. Number one, our consumers, the communities we work with, were using these products and services all the time. So it felt like if we wanted to have the biggest impact, we needed to work with the biggest brands. And secondly, there's such scale. And what I found is that working with lots and lots of companies that are small, actually, you put the same amount of time and energy as you do into working with these top 20 who have the opportunities to not just work in the UK, but across the globe, but in a very predictable and consistent way.
How did you manage, though, the focus on certain customers? Because obviously when they're that big, the contracts are huge and can become a large percentage of your turnover, which then means you're so reliant on them. So if they say jump, you're going to say how high. How did you manage that one?
Yeah, so I think the first thing, they do take much, like these are whales, right? So your ability to work with them, it's tricky and it does take time, and it can feel like you're just slogging a dead horse relentlessly. But I sort of knew that because Latimer was fortunate to also work with some really large brands. So I knew that if you've got something that really has value and you really are disciplined with the focus, you will get there. And so we did, and we were really fortunate. Very early on, Nestle, a brilliant guy called Simon Pollock, who was the VP of Innovation at Nestle Cereals, he took a massive risk on us, but he believed in this vision of, true innovation comes through co-design with consumers, and he took that risk. And it was really because of that risk, we had this lighthouse partner that we could truly not just co-create for them, but for us. So our entire product, Bulbshare in the very early days, we were very much, our roadmap was premised on the ideas and insights we were getting to solve the problems for that business.
So you were literally doing what you were setting out. So that action research
exactly.
that you were doing originally, you were almost applying that to the creation of Bulbshare?
100%.
Based on Nestle and Simon.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, pretty much.
Amazing.
And they allowed us, I think, to, you know, to reach product market fit faster, because we were so disciplined on responding to those needs, because they were, as you say, they were a massive part of our entire revenues, you know, without fail. But it did mean that we had a really credible lighthouse partner who was giving us the time to work with us to make this right. And when we solved it for them, we also knew that that would be a solve for the other 20 largest FMCG businesses in the world.
And you could take it as a case study.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there was a risk in the early days that we were overexposed on this one big customer. But I think, and you've always got to navigate that and balance that when you set things up. But I think the risk reward for us, if you're truly focused on the enterprise, if you really want to win with big enterprise, solving it once with a fantastic flagship like for us Nestle was, is such a route into being able to solve it for those larger brands. And we found actually that we were very quickly able to get into other large consumer brands and really replicate the same playbook that had worked so well for us with Nestle, who to this day still work with Bulbshare, you know, from, you know, now 6-7 years into the relationship.
That's fantastic. What was the hardest part then of starting it? Obviously, you're going back with Second Energy.
Yeah.
But what has some of those, because we know business is challenging, isn't it? It's so hard. What are some of those challenges and difficult moments that you had with Bulbshare then?
So I'd say, funnily enough, because of that early customer, the first period, that first sort of 18 months wasn't actually as mentally hard as I'd seen it with Latimer.
Yes.
But then
almost felt like a second step back. It's quite calm in comparison.
Yeah.
You're not in the chaos.
Yeah, exactly.
It's focused.
And we had a technology, and we were working with technology. There's a predictability to that. Our revenue model was annual subscription, so we weren't chasing for cash all the time as we had been with the agency model. So that really helped. It was actually COVID. So COVID happened sort of a couple of years in to the journey, and it was a complete show. It was a cocktail of madness. So the business had been doing really well, and suddenly the whole world went into paralysis, right? No one was doing anything. And just prior to that, I'd been quite aggressively hiring. So, you know, we'd had quite a big team. And at the same time, my wife was giving birth to twins. So on April the 9th, 2020, we had twins. It was lockdown. My mum was had bowel cancer, and she was in very late stage with that. And then we had the business that was now in paralysis, and very little help. And that was the mania. I think that was the sort of lowest point of sort of going, how are we going to do this? You know, we've got this business that suddenly, are we going to make payday? Stuff happening with my mum, and then I've got these two tiny babies that me and my wife literally didn't know what on earth to do,
how to sleep.
and to sleep, and just that was really intense. You know, probably the lowest point where I thought I need to check, you know, I might need to tap out on this. I don't know if we can get through.
How did you get through?
So there was a few things that happened. I think one, like your partner, and that was amazing through all that, right? Because I think for all of us, you've got a COVID story, right? Sure, you must have the same. Everyone has a COVID story, but it was a little bit of like, we're all in this together, and it really was. It was just me and Soph, living in Brighton, looking after these two tiny babies. So I think just first of all, feeling you've got that, you know, you're in it together. You're not alone. That was really, really important. And then from a business perspective, I was literally ringing round all the investors, like saying, please, look, we've got a good company here, but we need some cash to get out of this, you know, this problem. And for anyone who's raised venture capital money, you'll know it can be a really stressful, challenging thing. And we'd raised some venture money. But at that point, everything seemed to have gone quiet. and it was difficult to get hold of people. And I'd have really nice conversations with a few of them, and they'd say, look, I really love what you're doing, but to get them to actually just give me a little bit of cash, that was difficult. And I completely understand why that would be. And there was one guy, a guy called Alex, and I picked up the phone to him and had about 5-minute conversation. He said, I'm gonna give you some cash. You're gonna make payday. And that's what we needed. And because of Alex, all of a sudden FOMO kicked in. Suddenly other people joined that group, and we did make payday. And off the back of that, of course, with COVID, suddenly everything went digital. So from that early period of paralysis, suddenly brands said, well, we can't collaborate. We can't collaborate without digitization. We have to use online sources. Consumer behavior was completely rocked and changed by COVID. The way consumers were interacting and the sorts of products and services they wanted was in complete flux. And in a way, we were the anecdote to that, right? We were saying we will give you access to communities of consumers that you need to reach, and you're going to co-design your products directly with them, and you can do it all digitally, and you can do it globally.
Yeah.
So from that period of pain and thinking, actually, we're on the brink here, suddenly we had this sort of V-shaped recovery. And we didn't really ever look back from that. So from that period, we continued to grow really aggressively. Of course, bumps, everyone has bumps in the road, but that was a real inflection point for us, that intervention by Alex, and then others that were brilliant in supporting us to allow us to make the most of that opportunity that COVID gave us.
Do you think that's the moment that shifted it all then? Because I think sometimes there's a real turning point for us, isn't there? Sounds like that was the one for you from a Bulbshare perspective.
There's always forks in the road, aren't there?
Yeah.
And whether or not you can stay the course. I think it taught me a lot about resilience, and probably what my body and mind is capable of going through, right?
How much did you go through?
Yeah, I think you feel that. So yeah, it definitely was a turning point. And and I'd say, look, if you're going through really rocky times, don't underestimate the ability for the change in course of fortunes to be almost instantaneous, and it certainly was for us.
I'm reading Morgan Housel's book at the moment, and he talks about a lot of that in terms of luck, but also the risk side. So obviously Bill Gates, 1 in a million chance that he had a computer at his school. Yeah, but also the gent, I can't remember his name now, but Bill Gates' friend who also wanted to start Microsoft, and he had a 1 in a million unfortunate accident mountaineering and didn't make Microsoft. And it's the flip of the coin again sometimes, isn't it? Like you've just said, if you believe that you were lucky at the right time in London when you had the ethos was there, everything was positioned, action research was at its highest, and you were there delivering it. That was the kind of the look side. Yeah, okay, there was the flip later, but then look what happened with Bulbshare.
Yeah, I think I always say that around, like, it is so much about luck and serendipity. And people say you can create your own, and I totally believe that. And if you are relentless.
But you did that. That was the phone in all around the investors.
Yeah.
You made your own luck with Alex picking up the phone and saying, yes, okay, I will invest a bit more cash. Yeah, but that's okay. You made that, and then you created the FOMO of everybody else to invest. And then actually the luck there was the pandemic created the need for tech. So it's fascinating. Yeah,
and I think people should, if you look what's happening now with AI, like the opportunity, there's another wave right here. And I think... we were fortunate with COVID that it wasn't any, we just made sure that we were in the right place and that we were primed to deliver. And then those macro conditions can be quite, utterly transformative. And obviously on the other flip side, of course, you can have a fantastic business, you can work really hard, and the macro conditions can make it super challenging for you.
Yeah.
But,
and also you must have been having a really difficult time personally in terms of with twins, twins by yourselves while you were in lockdown in Brighton. And also, your mum and the situation she was in, that must have been really draining personally.
Yeah, it was. It wasn't, and we might come on to it how that's now informed what I'm now doing.
Yes.
But yeah, it definitely was. But at the same time, I think it's everything's about attitude, isn't it? And mindset. I've met some amazing people that on the surface you just go, God, how impossibly challenging what you've gone through, but yet your outlook and perception of things is phenomenal. And on the flip side, particularly in the world of startups and technology, and the people I've been fortunate to meet, I've met billionaires and multimillionaires who, frankly, are the most like in some instances, I see them as pretty unhappy.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of this is, of course, perspective, right?
And money doesn't always create that happiness.
Yeah.
It helps. It
Yeah,
can
it
help,
helps.
especially with the baseline. But that's a different episode.
Yeah.
Talking about the exit from Bulbshare, so obviously you exited from Latimer, and that was kind of with all different mixed emotions as well. You've now had a successful exit, 2024. You've been able to, and you just recently moved back to Derby a year or so before. Yeah, there we go. Successful exit, but is that the point where you're at the top of the mountain? This is something.
Yeah, so that again, it's funny. I spoke to just this morning. There was another entrepreneur who'd exited, and one of my mentors and also investor in Bulbshare. He'd 2 years before Bulbshare exited, he'd exited to Strava for 100 million, his company, and I talked to him about his experiences, and he would say to me, don't expect to feel elation when this thing happens. And again, same thing when we say just have focus, everyone tells you it, but do you do it? I didn't sort of believe him. And then the day we exited and had this life-changing moment, actually it was probably one of the, bar that COVID point when I was feeling really low, it was another point where I felt really like suddenly, God, what's my purpose? Why have I done this? Like Bulbshare was my baby, and still had so much energy for it, and I had to sort of navigate that. And of course, it wasn't an exit where I had to leave the company, and the guys have been fantastic, and still a lot of energy and excitement around what next for Bulbshare. But the day you do effectively settle is a day at which your control and power and the ability to shape at the extent that you've been used to does morph. It does no doubt change. And for you personally, that's quite a challenging time to think, okay, how do I reinvent myself? What am I for now? I've done this and I've devoted everything to it. What next?
Yeah. So what did you do?
Bought a frying pan.
You bought a frying
really
pan?
nice. I got a really lovely frying pan.
Was that the first thing you went and purchased?
Yeah, basically. Yeah, it's great. It's pretty much all I've done since. I did that, and so again, a bit like how Bulbshare emerged from a pain and a problem that I really wanted to solve. And I think one thing I've always sort of done is I have followed my passions. I've not really done things logically. I've just done them on the basis of what excites me, what am I curious about.
Yeah.
And it was the same with what would come next. So strangely, the week that I sold Bulbshare should have been this moment of absolute elation and excitement. And I told you, with the purpose thing, it was difficult. But actually, it was the same week that I was actually feeling really rough, tired, and I was in the doctor's office and I got diagnosed with irritable bowel disease. And I told you a few years earlier I lost my mum to to bowel cancer. And it always bothered me that all those signals that were in my, I was going on in my body, I was tired, I was exhausted, and I didn't do anything about it, and I ended up with IBD. For my mum, she'd been super healthy, no issues, and then ended up with bowel cancer. And I always wondered, had we read the signals earlier, like in my case, not a huge deal, but maybe I wouldn't have ended up with IBD. And for my mum, mightn't she had not got late stage bowel cancer? Might the things be different? So the fact that happened the week of the sale, I sort of took that as a bit of a sign. I want to do more. I want to learn more about that. And anyone who'd like listen, after 3 pints in the pub, I would pitch this idea, and I'd say, why is it we track all these other things? We have Aura rings, we have Whoops, we track all these other aspects of our lives, but our second brain, our digestive health, we don't
talk much about.
And we and it can have huge ramifications, in the case of my mum, and obviously much lesser importance myself. And so I would pitch this idea to say, why don't we create some technology that helps you with that, and that's how I've decided when I sold the company, instead of watching Loose Women and Cash in the Attic and sitting on the sofa, I'm gonna do something around that. And so
how much of the telly watching did you do?
I know. Yeah. Yeah, I should have done more probably. Well, and I was still at Bulbshare. I stayed on. I'm really excited by that, and still super excited by it. But I did have this itch to do something else, and my wife had sort of said, like, take a break and let's just reflect for a bit longer. But I think I've been a big believer in, if you see something and you feel passionate about it and you've got the means, why not just give it a go? So I've stupidly
jumped into the next thing.
Yeah, the mania in me has just meant that I've set up a new startup called Gutsy, which will hopefully help transform digestive health for people.
No, that's incredible. And you've already been to different places to go and sort manufacturers. I know you were going.
Yeah,
you went to China.
I was in China. I was in Beijing a few weeks ago, and we're building the product from scratch. It doesn't exist. There's nothing in the category. This idea of, effectively, for those that don't know, it's a strange idea. It's a product. It's a device that sits on your toilet. It takes pictures of your poop and urine and video, and it then translates that to mobile application and gives you insights and recommendations on things that you can do to improve your health and well-being. And no, it doesn't exist. There isn't anything like this out there at the moment, although we are now seeing that there are companies coming to market in this space, which hopefully is encouraging that we're not just completely mental thinking that people are going to want to do this. So I'm learning from scratch. So software I understand, but hardware, building hardware from scratch and working with manufacturers and electrical engineers, that's all completely new to me. But it's fascinating, and it's really, I think that's the buzz, that's the kick I get out of, is that early stage innovation and the mania of it, I think.
Brilliant. It is brilliant.
Oh, are you sure?
Yeah.
Are you going to be one of the early adopters?
Early adopter.
I'm going to give you a Gutsy in a few weeks.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
But there's really important things that we don't always talk about, isn't there? And actually there are, like you say, the Whoops, track your steps, you track your heart rate and everything like that. Why there must be so many things out there that we can track and do differently and be more preventative and more proactive. And that proactive nature's come through in everything you've done, really, of going, actually, let's go to the community. But now you're going, well, let's go to what the core, let's work the cause out.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, do you use Aura Ring, Apple Watch?
I used to use a Whoop.
Okay.
This is just a Withings one at the moment, so it's not quite to Whoop's level.
Okay. You're allowed to say that.
Am I allowed to say that? Yeah, of course I am. Not sponsored by Whoop, so yet. Yeah,
so I think people have started to get the idea of wearable technology and how that can add value, right?
Definitely.
From sort of, again, really high-end performance athletes who want it to get that extra 5%, but just to your everyday people who want to just improve, feel a little bit better, like be a bit more conscious of their health and well-being. And we think that there's no difference with regard to digestive health. And particularly it's the rise of digestive health issues for people in Europe and in the UK is ballooned in the last decade, and it can be really chronic. It can really lead to really difficult quality of life. And so we think we do wearable technology. Why not technology for your bathroom? And we're certainly seeing a bit of a move towards that. But we'll see. If anyone's watching this and thinking they're interested, then check out Get Gutsy. But for everyone else, they may well find it a push too far.
I'm loving that. I'm looking forward to seeing the journey unfold as well. I think we've probably already answered this one in terms of if we were looking back and reflecting, what were the tactics, habits or approaches that you would really give credit to your growth?
Yeah. So I'd probably say the first thing is just getting going. It's like just take risks. And I think you might talk about this later, is like the idea of risk taking is the core of anything that ends up being successful in my eyes. I think you've got to have an ability just to take that plunge and not be afraid to do that regardless of consequences. So I think that's always been a key strength, I think, that has probably set me in good stead. And then I think religious discipline on one or two things that you are passionate about that really motivate and drive you. And they don't need to be metrics, they don't need to be economic metrics, whatever that is. I think just the idea that you really believe in something, you are religiously focused on it, and you wake up every morning thinking about how you're going to execute against that.
Having that real focus.
And it's hard to do that, but I think
there's something shiny over there.
Yeah, exactly. I like shiny things. I like shiny saucepans.
Yes. I'm wondering if that's your quick fire. What's the best investment you've made of money? But we'll come back to it in a bit.
Probably is. Yeah.
Do you mind if we go into the quick fire round? So these are just 6 questions that I ask every interviewer. So if you could give one piece of advice to your younger self, what would it be?
So it would be drawn around that. So if you're 20, right, you are completely unencumbered. You don't have, hopefully, because I wouldn't advise it for 20, you don't have a mortgage, right? You probably don't have a young family at that stage, but I think you have so few other things that you need to worry and think about that it's the one time where you can really go all in on risk. And perversely, actually, we treat and train young people to do the opposite in some ways. We sort of say, train and think and learn and observe. And I think observation is super important. But I actually think at that age, it's the one time, maybe just jump in, don't observe, just act, do, live it for yourself with all the joys and challenges and perils that come with that. But your younger self has such capacity for learning, and also, in my eyes, such an opportunity for risk at that stage. So I think that's probably what I would say to people is take much more risks. If you think that you're doing something and you feel safe, then you should probably go harder with it. You should be more aggressive in your risk profile for what you do.
It's funny, isn't it? I'm smiling because I set up a business when I'd got 2 children. Actually, first business was just one sole child at that point. But you're right.
But that's risk. That's even more risk.
Yeah, that's it. You've got I did the wrong point. I should have done it at 20 rather than at whatever age it was, with a child and a mortgage and everything else.
Yeah, but that's in a way that probably the jeopardy around that
makes
you succeed, right? Because it has to. Because what else are you going to do?
But on the back of the failures, what other pivotal things could have come forward as well? It's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
So what's one belief, habit or rule you wish you'd unlearned earlier?
Yeah. So there's probably a few things. I think one is born out of background to a certain extent. So I think there's a bit of deference when I started, a deference to other people who've been very successful, who've
Okay.
maybe come from a different background to me,
Yeah.
and in the early days, maybe feeling like you're not worthy to be
Yeah.
in that space. And I think it's such a blocker to people realizing opportunities. And that's one thing, just talking to some guys this morning about, is that if you're not within an environment where people actively say, no, you can do that, then I think you can quite quickly fall into this trap of feeling like you shouldn't be there, that you can't really achieve, things aren't going to work out.
Mm.
And it can all of a sudden become quite a lonely and challenging space. So yeah, I'd almost say don't sort of and one thing I've learned meeting very successful people is just surprisingly how the same challenges, the same joys, the same perils that they have as anyone else. And I think sometimes there's a deference that people from certain backgrounds may have to others that can inhibit them and make them feel that they shouldn't be in that space. And absolutely they should be.
Oh yeah. Too right. What's the best investment other than your saucepan that you've made of money, time, or energy? It can be a saucepan as well.
I mean, I feel like I'm now like a big promoter,
Or frying pan, was it?
Frying pan.
Was it
It was a frying pan, but
Yeah.
I have upgraded. I've now got the set,
Got you.
so I've gone a bit wild on that. Yeah, again, I think the best investment on energy has just been pursuing things that are very intuitively important to me,
Yeah.
without particularly thinking about it, or without particularly saying, I have a career path, I have a goal in mind. I've just been very intuitive about the things that bring me joy, the things that I'm passionate about, and associate myself with other people that have that feeling, that same sort of set of values. And that's, I think, has been revelatory in what I've been able to be a part of.
But that's because you've been so focused and it's lived into your values as well, because it's something you're passionate about.
Yeah, and it's weird, isn't it? Because you see so many, there's so many opportunities for you to not do that, and for people to fall into pragmatism, because it's pragmatic that I do that, even though it doesn't really float my boat, but it doesn't fulfill me. But it's pragmatic that I go down that route, and we all feel that, but I just resist it at all costs. I mean, if you'd done that, I imagine you'd probably still be working at some big accountancy firm, right?
Yeah.
Rather than having what you've created.
Definitely. Yeah, it is. It's kind of going, well, what was the reason? What's the real deep cause? And I worked with lots of small businesses as a student. So I went to the University of Derby. I had 3 part-time jobs at the same time, and a lot of those businesses were smaller. So an industrial knife manufacturer, what was it, a hydraulic business as well, and other little businesses, and actually seeing the impact of cash, of money, and all that kind of thing on them. Yet then I could work at Tesco's or Calvin Klein Jeans, and the real shift in terms of an entrepreneurial business, but then that there is that element of chaos. There's that element of perhaps they haven't got all the processes and the systems in place, but then it's a really amazing creative buzz to be in. Whereas then you go into the Tesco's and you've got the store management leadership program, and it felt very vanilla. I knew where I wanted to be.
Yeah, because in a way you're basically a bit of a maniac, right? You've got the capacity to do, and it's not for everyone. But I think you often see it, the same traits. So the group I was with today, you could see around the room there was like an urgency in everyone. There's a little bit of difficulty with sort of staying still. There's like this tendency for action.
Yes.
And I think if you have that, just leaning into that passion probably results in, whether it be whatever success, I think it certainly results in a degree of joy and happiness and fulfillment that you probably struggle to get if you don't follow that path, right?
Yeah, if you're just in the rat race. So right now, what does success look like for you?
Yeah, success.
It's a really good one, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, isn't it? I don't know. I think I think there's three things for me that I now like. Again, the joy of having that experience with Bulbshare did mean I've got a bit of reflection. And the thing around digestive health is important to me because of the impact that's had on my mum, myself, people around me. And so I'm really grateful that I can get into that. And I really want, I want that to be something that is transformative for people around improving their lives around digestive health. So I really hope that to say. Alongside that, the mania of my previous work has meant probably I've not been as focused on family and as I should be, and so now it's been great to sort of try and understand that balance a bit more. I think balance is a terrible word. It's not about balance, but about ensuring that you give sufficient time for the joy that comes with all aspects of life, and central to that is, of course, time with the family. And it's been really, really great being able to manage my own time in the way that we get to do as entrepreneurs, which is magic, but being a bit more disciplined on how I do that. Nice. And then third is like the city and where I'm from and getting back to that. And it always bothered me that I left the city and moved to London and did everything there. And again, if anyone would bother to listen, I would always get on a bit of a high horse saying, why is it that we have to be in London, New York, or now to a certain extent Manchester, to be able to build great things and to have access to investment and to talent and to technology. And now, of course, the joy is you don't need that, right? There's no reason. You can build great things wherever you are. Your access to talent is global. And increasingly access to capital is more global as well. So I really want to do that. And so I've sort of moved the entire family back, and we've got great friends here and such a deep sense of community. Like I always love the community in Derby. I think it's so special. And the history of the city is really important. The birth of the Industrial Revolution was right here. We had some of the biggest risk takers, the biggest innovators were right here in this city. And now there's a new revolution that's taking us. And I sort of feel the opportunity for, if we did it then, why can't we be an important part of the narrative around this new AI revolution? So I'm really keen to build things here that can create that narrative arc from what Derby was then and what it can be now. And so that's a big sort of, probably, again, I'm obsessed with that at the moment, and I probably talk and go on about it far too much.
It's good I'm nodding along because I know we've had the conversation as well.
And you've seen it, right? We're increasingly meeting some really brilliant, talented people that have historically felt quite isolated. Yet you've got one of the most successful global businesses based out of here in Rolls-Royce. The manufacturing and engineering base in the city is a huge force, and yet we punch below our weight today.
I wonder, and it's slightly controversial, but I wonder if that's partially why we do play it safe and we don't take as many risks,
right? Because
there's such a force that's there, that's secure, that's enables. And I know when we spoke to Dean, because he was from Chad as well, so Dean Jackson from Hoob, and he turned around and said you had really one option, and that was to go to Rolls-Royce, and you'd earn a good living, and there's it's brilliant, but everyone's, and that's fantastic, because that's helped our economy in Derby and brings up but we've also got the poverty issues as well. And I do sometimes wonder if you've kind of had that over-reliance on some brilliant businesses, Rolls-Royce, Toyota, but actually has that quashed our innovation a little bit, and maybe that's what we're trying to reignite.
I think so. I think they've got to be a force for good, right? I mean, those big companies, they are huge drivers of the economy. Nobody in Derby doesn't know someone who works for Rolls-Royce, right? So it seems to be like the economic hub. But you're right, places like Chad and Normanton and other areas, they've largely been left out of the mix. And but I'm convinced that those large companies want to be part of driving a successful and thriving city that isn't just for the few, but for all communities here. And I just think there's a little bit of a gap in terms of seeing the bigger, broader picture for the city and the ambition for the city. And I don't think this is peculiar to Derby.
Yep.
I think you see it in other cities and towns right across the UK that have felt a little bit abandoned and haven't really recovered from COVID or even prior to COVID. But I do think there's an opportunity for a renaissance that is born of AI, this AI revolution. There's huge opportunities for those that take it to grow and develop, coupled with fantastic large companies like Rolls-Royce and others, big industry that want to invest, and then people like communities,
just about to say, community.
Fantastic talent and passionate people that, you know, really care about their city, their area, and want to be part of shaping it.
And we definitely have that in Buckets Falls, I think.
Yeah, it's bonkers, isn't it? Like, you know, I was in Berlin a few months ago, and I just walked down the street, and some guy had a Rams tattoo.
Oh, really?
On his thing. It's like this knowing that they go wherever you go.
You always find someone, don't you?
People are there. So yeah, I do think there's something there, and that's a big focus for me at the moment.
Fantastic. Who's one unsung hero who's helped shape your journey?
So I'd say probably my dad to a certain point. So as I said, we grew up in Chad, and you know, didn't have a lot, but he weirdly took a second mortgage out to buy Encyclopedia Britannica.
Oh.
Yeah, do you remember those big
books? Yeah, I do. The really big ones.
They were really big, those beautiful brown books. And I don't think they're worth anything anymore. I think it costs more to remove them. But at the time, they were like these sacred things. And the fact that my dad got those, there was a sort of certain sense of like aura around learning, around curiosity.
Yeah.
And I think that one single act sort of really embodied so much around. He took a risk on that. He couldn't afford them, but he really, you know, he recognized that that was really important to him. And I think that was a big sort of part of the wider ecosystem of realizing curiosity and learning and just not being afraid to take a risk if you really believe and buy into it is important. So yeah, that. Yeah.
That's good. And then what's one line you say to yourself when things get tough?
I say this all the time, and it's a line from my mum. My mum would say this to me when things were a bit difficult. She'd say it to my sister as well. She'd go, "Forza, forza." And forza is Italian. My family on my mum's side emigrated from Italy. It means sort of power, force. You can do it. Sort of, it's said in that way. And it's on my AirPods. I've got like forza on there. Wherever I can put that word, I use it. And I tell it to people. I say, you know, if they've got to do a big presentation or a pitch, or if they're feeling they can't do it, I go, forza, forza.
I love that. Do the twins say it now too?
Yeah. My boy can't quite pronounce it properly, but my little girl, she's got it nailed.
Oh, that's great. That's fab. And would you put that on business owners' walls then? Is that almost something that
I don't know if they'd understand. They'd be like, what is that?
Yeah, what does forza?
Yeah, they might not get it, but on my own, 100%.
So more that kind of that power, that, come on, believe in yourself.
Yeah.
You've got this.
Yeah, it even sounds like it's, you know, even the way it sounds is got a degree of like.
So yours would have
strength.
to be the voice.
Yeah, you just have that. Just me repeating
it continuously. Press the button. If you wanted someone to take something away from this podcast, what would that takeaway be?
Well, it'd be invest in Derby, first of all, wouldn't it? It'd be like do something, try and do things within your local communities. But no, I'd probably say it's all about just that self-belief, that early stage, just taking as much risk as you can possibly take. And if it doesn't feel scary, then it's not risky enough. And I think if you do that, then, something quite magical might happen.
Or you'll learn along the
Or
way.
you'll learn, yeah. And you'll buy a certain, less nice frying pan.
I love that. So what have I taken it away? I don't think, and I've known you for quite some time now, but I didn't realise how focused you were on these different passions. As in there's something deeply ingrained in that purpose and that passion, and then you will follow that through. And I think seeing then that focus that you perhaps moved away from Latimer into Bulbshare and then have followed that focus through has been incredible. Obviously, you've had community at the heart all the way from the start, whether that's community in terms of listening to customers, listening to what's happening now, or actually caring about the community that you're in, and also Derby. Look and risk we've talked about lots today as well, in terms of being the risk taker, but also recognising that on the flip side of that's luck, but also that other side, when you are in that amazing place of luck, remember that the flip side's risk too. Incredible. And also getting people to take that opportunity, like with Alex, actually pressing for that pivotal moment, and then actually the FOMO that you can create if you can be brave enough, if you can take that risk of putting yourself out there, because that was a big thing to do, to put yourself out there and say, we need the cash. And actually then how that flipped that round.
I wanted to flip the mic because I think you've got a really good conversation around what you do in Derby and what you're trying to do. You've gone from, in some respects, your journey from mainstream accountancy to setting up your own practice, but then being a real custodian of the city, a real bastion for what's going on. And you see it in the way you operate. And I've seen that through our conversations at the time. And we need more of that. We need more, but we need to hear your story more, I think.
Thank you. I just care.
Yeah, it's funny. But I think people get a lot of, they take a lot of energy from your energy around that. Like with anything, sometimes you feel, oh God, I can't possibly do this. But then you're a bit of why don't we do this? And you try these things. And I think it inspires a lot of people to go, you know what, why not? It certainly makes me feel more, more self-belief that we can do things in the city that perhaps for a lot of people would feel like, oh, you can't possibly. There's too much red tape to cover. But I don't think there is, and you are such a big part of that.
Oh, well, thank you ever so much. I've really enjoyed that, and
No, it's great.
Perfect. Thank you, Matt.